I am joined by a very special guest today because Rhythm Changes is partnered with the Inlet Music Series in Port Moody, and the first concert of the series' fourth season on September 20th features Cara Luft here, and it is her concert with Sherry Ulrich and the Luckies, and this is at the Inlet Theatre in Port Moody, and you can get tickets now if you are in the Vancouver area. Now, Cara has lived an inter-provincial life of a folkie, so you may be listening from somewhere else. So I hope we could talk about the many interesting things she has done recently to entertain you and inform you about her music as well. So please welcome Cara Luft.
Hello.
How's it going?
It is going. I'm here in Winnipeg where I live, and it's kind of dreary and drizzly. It makes me think of a winter Vancouver day because it's rainy.
Okay.
But yes, I'm in Winnipeg, and I seem to be coming to Vancouver area a lot lately. So I'm looking forward to getting back there in just like 2 weeks, I guess.
So I'm thinking back to places you have been to play music this year. Maybe you have been again since then, but in terms of what I was checking out, were you out here in May?
I was, yes, I was there in May, and I was again there or on the coast in June and early July. Um, I've been working on a new album, and we recorded it in Vancouver with Sherry Ulrich's daughter, actually, Julia, Julia Graff. She's a wonderful sound engineer. And we played the guys that I recorded with. We played Bouchard Gardens, as well as something further up island. And then I was teaching at a music camp on Gambier Island. So I've kind of been on the coast a lot. And then May, as you mentioned, in May we were down playing a bunch of shows on the island. And yeah, I can't get Vancouver out of my system.
We picked lovely times to do that because the weather was probably excellent both times. It's smoky here right now,
I
so it's not the
heard
greatest time, but
not so great. Yeah.
yeah. But that's cool that you've been for multiple reasons. I do know about this project at Monarch Studios. I saw was where you've been recording this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I love you. You do good research.
Well, maybe I'll ask you about the coming record a little bit in a second, but I actually want to take you back several years because I have only heard you sing and perform live once, and you are known for your work several decades in the Canadian folk scene with groups like the Wailin Jennies and the Small Glories, you and JD Edwards. And I heard the Small Glories because I was with my band, which I had started with my friends only a year prior at that point at the 2018 Mission Folk Music Festival, one of the greatest folk festivals in the country. I heard the
Yes,
Small Glories.
oh, and I love that festival. It's got such a community vibe to it. Yeah. Oh, that's so great. So you were playing that year as well. I love that.
We camped. I don't know if you camped.
We didn't camp, but um I like that artists and participants can all camp together at festivals like that. That's very cool.
Yeah. Here's a fun way. Shout out to Michelle Demarashevitz, by the way, for her work at the
Love
Mission Folk
Michelle.
Music Festival.
Yes.
The festival has been going for maybe about 40 years now, or they might be coming up on that kind of anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get to see her at various music conferences throughout the year. So it's really beautiful to connect with people like Michelle and some of the other fine folks that are connected with various festivals across the country. But Michelle is a very close part in my heart. I love her.
Right on. Maybe I could open this up into a fun little broader exploration if you're down. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why when I think of folk festivals, that's one that I kind of hold close to my heart. But
Yeah.
you are certainly an expert. You have played at a lot of folk festivals. You've done a lot of other things too, like you were talking about teaching at a camp, and I'm sure you've done a lot of workshop style stuff as well. That's also something that happens at a folk festival sometimes. But like
Sometimes,
in your
yeah.
opinion, broad strokes, what makes a really excellent folk festival?
Um, it's interesting because I've been playing at them for so long. I don't necessarily think bigger is better. Um, and I feel like that's why some of the smaller festivals like Mission are close. I feel really connected to them because there isn't such a large division between the performers and the audience. we're not whisked away and hiding in the back necessarily all the time. Whereas some of the bigger festivals, that just happens just because of the nature of how large they are. There's often a separation between the performers and the audience. Um, Festivals like Mission, I have actually, the year that you played, I remember specifically the volunteer party that happened. I think it was on the Sunday night, and it was at a tent, and it was really cool because there was volunteers, there were performers, there were audience members, and everybody just kind of came together and celebrated community and music. I really think music is a catalyst for building community. Um, and so we go to festivals thinking we're going to go for the music experience, and that is one of the reasons we all love festivals. But really, it's about connection and finding, kind of breaking down barriers and finding um, a common sense of purpose, I guess, as humans. That's to go really deep with you there. Uh, but yeah, festivals, I think that anytime that there's more of a collaborative element to a festival, whether there's collaboration between the musicians on stage or between the musicians in the audience, um, I think those make for extra special events. And also the reminder that a performance, whether it's at a festival or a concert, that really there are these moments in time that will never be replicated ever the same. And that there's something really beautiful and meaningful that in that exact moment where the audience and the performer are involved in something, that they're creating something together through their shared energies that will never happen exactly the same. And that's, I think, why so many of us performers and participants love festivals and love live music, because they're just such unique experiences.
Yeah, and it's not always that easy to facilitate that experience when you're out on the road.
Right.
You're playing a variety of different venues and different sizes. Like, yeah, at a great festival, that is going to be key. That's going to be central to the experience. But when you're playing a bunch of different clubs
Yeah.
or certainly restaurants or anything like that, it can be hard sometimes. House concert may be better. Hopefully something like this kind of Inlet series, it's in like a theater style space, but it's going to attract like a regular group of locals. So there's going to be some of that, but it's not always easy to get this feeling on any individual show when you're touring, right?
Yeah, I think that you're right. You nailed it. It's hard to do that. I think that's why the mentality that you need to have as the performer is to go into each of those settings knowing it might be difficult to create that, but if that's your agenda and if that's your purpose, then it makes it a little easier. So I always try to make an effort to feel a connection, or a friendly connection with the presenter, with the volunteers, with the sound crew, with people who are involved with making the event happen. Because without them, there's three parties that are involved. There's the audience, the performer, and the presenter. And I want it to feel like we're all in it together, and we all need to take our roles seriously and find the joy in that moment. And it is hard to do sometimes. But it's possible, and it's even better when you get to do it with people who you actually genuinely like and care about. Hence the Port Moody show I get to do with one of my dearest friends, Sherry Ulrich. And that, in and of itself, the fact that we get to play together and participate in creating an evening that will never be replicated quite exactly the same ever again, that is already starting at a very high. We've set the bar high enough for ourselves that we're like, yeah, this is awesome, this is going to be great, kind of regardless of who shows up.
There's
But
like
yeah.
an origin story to the four members of the Luckies, you and them together. There's like an inaugural show, right?
Yeah, so last year, my dual project, the Small Glories, we're on I would say, a fairly long hiatus right now. We're taking a long break, and I the kind of us shutting down for a while coincided with me turning 50, and I wanted to do a series of unique shows that celebrated turning 50 and that I was still trucking in this music industry. I was still giving concerts. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do 50 concerts in celebration of my 50th? And every show would be slightly different. And Sherry was going to be involved in a bunch of the shows on the coast. And one of the shows was in Victoria, or in Sydney, I should say, at a theater there. And we invited her group, the Luckies, to be part of it. And it was really special because I had never I don't think I had met the other two gals until the day of the show. And it was just really beautiful how we all came together and worked up these songs and went and played them for the first time in front of a sold out theater. And it was just really magical. Yeah, it's really what music for me is about. It's about playing music with people that you have a connection with, and hopefully you get to do it again.
What was the vibe in terms of how you put together the repertoire for that first show then? Did you find yourself like, oh, you're in the leader's shoes and you were kind of picking what the material was, or was it divided up like between you and Sherry, or like between everybody? Like, how did that work?
That's a good question. I think because it was billed as like my 50 for 50 show, I kind of took the lead in terms of the songs that I really wanted to share and the songs that I wanted to collaborate with. But because Sherry was also an integral part of that, she was also given free reign to be like, okay, when it's time for your spot with the Leckies, what are the songs that you guys want to do on your own, and what songs do you want me to be part of? We have I think both Sherry and I, we've been doing this long enough that we have a pretty good open style of communication to figure out, okay, what's the agenda for the show, who's kind of taking the lead, and where do we want to divvy up responsibilities. So we're doing something very similar with the Inlet series. We're kind of seeing it as a double bill, and we're coordinating which songs we each want to do, which songs we want to do on our own, which songs we want to do with each other. I'm also bringing out my new side guy, Clayton Parsons. He's this wonderful, I call him the best kept secret in the Kootenays. He lives in Cranbrook, British Columbia, and he did a lot of the co-writing with me for this new album. And he's been coming out with me regularly as my side player. So it'll be really special to have him join with the Luckies as well on a couple of their songs too. So he's going to be the token male on stage, the much younger brother, the chosen younger brother on stage with all the estrogen energy. It's going to be great.
So this is this new Cara Luft solo album, right? Which album number is this for you as a solo artist?
Oh, as a solo artist, I think it's number 7.
Nice.
I think it's number 14 or 15 in the grand scheme of things, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, my first official solo record since, I think my last solo record officially came out in 2012 and was recorded in 2011. So yeah, it's been over 10 years. The Small Glories, we did a couple of EPs and a couple of full lengths. So I haven't been sitting on my butt, but yeah, so this is interesting because it's my foray back into the world. And I'm calling it a solo album, but really it's a collaborative effort because I involved Clayton and a dear friend of mine, Scott Poley, this wonderful producer and instrumentalist, pedal steel player, beautiful pedal steel and guitar player from England, who I've known since he was 12. You can believe it. He became one of my super fans when I went over in my 20s to play a festival in Liverpool, England. And I took him out on his very first tour when he was 19. I took him to Europe as my side guy. And he's just been a big supporter and believer of mine for a long time. And so, yeah, he wanted to be involved in this project too. And then Julia, of course, Julia Graf. It was really cool to hang out with people in their 30s.
Okay, I want to get a little personal on something like that. This could be fun, okay? Because you mentioned 50 and the 50 shows for 50 tour.
Yeah.
So this year I turned 30. So I almost want to reflect on, like, you know, when you were in the biz here, when you
Yeah.
were in your late 20s or early 30s, You know, like, you don't have to explicitly compare it to how you feel now in general. You could, but I'm just curious what was on your mind and where you felt like you were at. If you, like, look back to then, like, what was that period? Because that was a different era. This industry worked differently. Everything worked
Yeah,
differently.
everything worked
Where were
differently.
you when you were, like, where I am now?
Well, I was with the Jennies,
Right.
and then shortly in my early 30s, I left the Jennies to go back to my solo career. And but it was interesting, late 20s and early 30s, it was kind of the tail end of the era where you could still make royalty money. Um, so in my 30s, I remember getting great royalty checks, and that's how I built a savings account. Because of mechanical royalties. People were still buying albums back then. And yeah, so and that kind of that was kind of the end of the glory days, I would say. I also think for me, 20, so now I'm 20 years down the line, um, my my perspective and my purpose is refined. Um, I think in my 20s, I mean, I was brought up in a folky world and my parents are folk singers. So there's the kind of the chasing the carrot element of the music industry that is a little less obvious or a little less promoted in the folk world, but it still exists. And the Jennies, we were a pretty hot shit
Yes.
project. And we were definitely um, playing that game. And not that that was a bad thing. It's just that there was an element that I think now, not I think, I know now that it's an unsustainable and unrealistic element. For me, I really have refined what motivates me. And community is what motivates me. Connection is what motivates me. When you do something for money and fame, you will never be satisfied. You will always come up short. Um, and I think in my 30s, I was kind of battling it out in my mind as to, um, I mean, I walked away from a very incredibly successful project to honor more my instinctual desire of style of music I wanted to play. I wanted to go back to being a little gutsier and a little bit more oomph and do creativity on my own terms, which meant walking away from a hugely successful project that would have to this day given me some financial security. Um, and so I was having this constant battle, I think, throughout most of my 30s of like, I knew what fame tasted like, but it was not satisfactory. It didn't satisfy this deeper inner need that I had. And so there I go, pursue wanting to satisfy this inner stuff, knowing that it came with a sacrifice that I wouldn't I wouldn't have financial success, and I probably wouldn't have fame the way that the Jennies had fame. So coming to terms with that and then kind of realigning my perspective and what my agenda was, and really trying to hone that with the Small Glories. That I knew the Small Glories was an excellent project, and it satisfied this desire of singing really tight two-part harmony and getting to play for lots of people and having experience and exposure, but having it more on my terms and wanting to do things the way that I wanted to do them. Um, and knowing that fame and money were elusive. Um, and so, yeah, now that the Small Glories are on hiatus, I'm really coming back, really honing in on, I really only want to play music with people who I genuinely love and who genuinely love me. I really only want to pursue things that are going to bring beauty and peace and joy and love and hope to the world. I don't want to I don't want to chase an elusive carrot. The Small Glories, we were chasing some carrots and we knew we were chasing carrots. We were doing it more on our terms, but there were still carrots there, if that makes sense. And you kind of get stuck on the hamster wheel, and it can be extremely disorienting and discouraging and soul draining. This kind of sucks the life out of you. So again, it feels like I'm constantly imagining what I want my future to look like and what I want my career to look like, and really honing that, really honing it. And it takes till I was 50 to kind of figure it out. That was
Wow,
very
that's so cool.
long-winded. Sorry, that was a very long-winded ramble there, but
No, I
yeah,
love it.
you got
You
it.
mentioned the carrots and you also mentioned like when you do something for money and fame. I think there's an interesting nuance there because it's like, yeah, if you find yourself in a project where you are playing the game the way you described it and where you're chasing carrots, like you said, you know, once you're in that, once you're doing that, it actually isn't about anymore like what your heart is driving you to do, why you're it's not about why you're there anymore. You can have the greatest of intentions, but I think you realize, right, like once you're on the path, you know, the other people that are working with you on the path, the forces that are acting
Mm,
on you as you're doing it, they are going to keep moving you down the path. They are going to keep making you playing the game. It's almost like you can't change that, like once you're in motion and once you're doing it.
yeah,
And that seems to be like something that you have had a few opportunities to like jump off and do something new once you realize that.
yeah, yeah. That, yes, exactly. Yeah. And how to keep sane, and how do you balance things out. And I think a lot of it has to do with who do you align yourself with, who do you play music with, who do you work with, keeping the lines of communication open, and knowing that if you need to walk away from a situation, that's okay. It might be painful, and you might need to close some doors in order for other doors to open.
This resonates with me a lot because I grew up. My mom is not musical, but I grew up mostly living with my mom. My parents were separated. My mom has always like been like a self-employed person or a business owner, and like I grew up with that, and like my
Mm,
mom telling me that like you can always go find your own way. You know, you can
mm,
always do things on your own terms. These were like messages that I got, not explicitly artistic framed, but you know, when I came into
ah,
this world, then I was thinking that way because of that.
yeah, that's great. Moms, man, they have wisdom,
Yeah.
don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is really tied into something else I wanted to ask you about, which is you on your own artist website, you just relaunched or launched a new patronage thing, which could also be described as like a membership or a subscription or a fan club or various other kind of direct to artist channels that people can maintain. And you presented this in a very personal way, that came across as true to you from me just checking it out cold, right? And I think for like the artists or the super fans, who could hear you tell a little bit about it right now, like talk about the intent behind doing something like that and what you've learned about like why this is important to you to have an outlet like this.
Well, I have people who want to support me, and I've had people support me, not just financially, in all sorts of ways. And I've always kind of been humming and hawing about how to go about something like this. Um, I did start crowdfunding way back. I think my first time I crowdfunded for an album was in 1997 or 1996, like before it was called crowdfunding. It didn't have a term. And I walked around with a receipt book, and I asked people if they would be willing to buy a copy of my album in advance, and I would give them a receipt, and I kept a copy because I said I don't really want to go to a bank's not going to lend me money. I don't know where to find the money, so I'm going to ask my community to act as my bank essentially. And that's how I discovered that people want to be part of the process. So I was always doing crowdfunding for projects. Every album, there's always been a crowdfunding element. But in terms of like actual career sustainability, now that like you can't rely on royalty money anymore. You can't rely on merch sales. You can't rely even on gig income. So there's so many income streams that have dried up, and um, And I know patronage has existed for, centuries, and it's figuring out a way to go about this. And there was something about Patreon that bothered me. Many things that bothered me. I didn't like that they took a percentage of the money that came in. Um, and I didn't like the separation between the people who were able to give a lot more versus the people who couldn't give as much, and that there were different perks. I could understand that from a crowdfunding model for a project, but I couldn't really wrap my head around it for a patronage model. And I decided, based on my socialist upbringing, that I wanted to launch something on my own terms that allowed everyone at the table, regardless of what their means were, that everyone could partake in what I was able to offer. Um, because I knew that some people really wanted to support me, but they couldn't afford $50 a month. They could afford $5 a month. Some people could afford $100 a month. And what I've noticed is the people who are able to give the most expect the least. And that has always been my experience with the crowdfunding model, is people who give you the most really don't want anything in return. So essentially I hummed and hawed for a couple of years and realized that Bandzoogle offered some in-house options for all sorts of ways for artists to support. And Bandzoogle doesn't take a percentage, which I think is extremely artist friendly and very supportive. Their system is not as slick as Patreon or some of these other sites, but it's suits my agenda. And the response I've gotten has been quite beautiful, actually, like the way people are resonating with it. And that there's no expectation, there's no pressure. People don't have to do this if they don't want to. Just come join the family if you want, but no pressure if you don't. So
Yeah. It's great to see. All artists kind of reckon with something like this at some point. So it's always nice to see examples and to hear about them. I appreciate that.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, so last thing, this show coming up in mid-September. Do you have other dates, maybe in BC or other provinces, before or after
Yes.
you come down Port Moody?
So I'm meeting up with Sherry and the gals and Clayton. We're playing Courtney first on the Thursday. Friday, we're in Gibsons. Saturday is Port Moody. Sunday is Bowen Island. And then after that, I go to Manitoba. I've got a couple of hometown regional shows where I'm showcasing all this new material from the new album. The album isn't coming out until next spring, but I haven't really played a lot of these songs. And no one in Manitoba has really heard any of the songs, so I'm doing them here. And then I go to Ontario for some shows as well as a big showcase. So yeah, stuff is happening.
Well, Cara, it was so lovely to share this chat with you. Thanks for doing all the great work that you do, and we look forward to having you here in Port Moody.